All right, so tired of the crud auto repair. We haven't done a video like this in a while, but I want to grab you. This is very important what I'm about to tell you. I'm putting up two videos that both have to do with the rear brakes on a 2003 to 2007 Mazda 6, but I understand that Fords can be like this and other makes and models can be like this, and I want to tell you about the retaining screw. Okay, the first thing is, and my producer and I were talking about this the other day, why do they put a retaining screw on the rotor for these vehicles? And the answer is to give you a hassle. Okay, so first thing I want to explain here is the retaining screw is basically a piece of obstacle. It's a piece of junk. I have consulted with many mechanics and people who are experts in cars that are friends of mine, and we all come to the same conclusion. What holds the rotor onto the wheel? It's a question. What holds the rotor onto the wheel? Well, you see those 5 lug studs? Darn it! You think those hold the rotor onto the wheel? Well, how is that? Well, those 5 lug studs hold the rotor onto the wheel when you put this thing called the wheel on the car. Because the wheel holes go over the lug studs, and you put these things called lug nuts on there. And the lug nuts tighten down onto the lug studs, and guess what that causes to happen? That causes the rotor to stay in place. Ain't that something? So, when these wonderful engineers at these car dealerships decide to put these retaining screws in here, that is an obstacle for you to take it to them. Let me tell you something else that they did. They put this incredibly weak, I wouldn't even call it aluminum, the garbage material these retaining screws are made out of. It's sad. I sat there with a regular Phillips head screw with a little bitty L-shaped screwdriver ratchet. And all it did was tear this screw to pieces because the metal on that screw is softer than a baby's bottom. Okay? Let me tell you how you're going to get it out of there and it'll never be a problem for you again. Okay, I got a drill. Talk about, tap it. This, that. Well, let me tell you something. I looked around with a flashlight for brake lines, for sensors. What does this screw go into to where if I take a drill and a drill bit and just blast the whole thing out of there? What would happen if you did that? The answer, nothing. Okay, your rotor goes onto that circle that you see in the picture, right? I think that's what is that called? That's a part of the axle, I think. It sticks out through, is it the CV joint? Constant velocity joint? Okay, well, that screw goes into that hole, and there is basically a very cheap metal disc that fits, it's just up in there on the back side. Okay, so what I did was I sat there and I took my drill and I just drilled it all the way through that daggum plate. Destroyed it. A big old hole there, and I got rid of the wires and everything, right? I wiped all of it out. Now here's the thing. Once you do that, the car is still going to give you a fit. The rotor will not come off right away. So here's what you do. You do not need that retaining screw in there. You ain't got to worry about getting it out and putting it back in. You don't need it. Okay, what you want to do is this. Because of corrosion and dirt and dust and all the rest of it, that rotor is still not going to want to come off. Even with the blasted caliper, the whole assembly, not just the caliper, but the bracket that holds the caliper on there. Here's what you do. To the left or to the right, there is a backing plate in behind that rotor. And there is an opening where the backing plate stops, where you can hit the rotor from the back inside of the wheel. What you do is you spin the rotor and you just tap it. Give it a couple taps with a hammer every, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches. You're going to start to feel it come loose, but something's still holding it on there. Here's what you do. You take it and you just hit it as hard as you can, one place. Spin it, hit it as hard as you can again. And that rotor, when you keep pounding away at it, will start to pop off. And then guess what? When you put the rotor back on there and you tighten down the caliper, the rotor will what do you do? It'll start to veer out. Well, you just put your hand on there and veer it back in. When you tighten down the top and bottom caliper assembly bolt, get it nice and tight on there. All you got to do is just put the wheel on and put the lug studs on and tighten everything down, and everything is going to be just fine. You do not need that blasted retaining screw in there. It is a piece of obstacle that these manufacturers put on there. And let me tell you something else. The reason why I did this video was because I saw other videos about this, and they showed you how it is when it works, and that's fine. They did everything correctly. What I'm telling you is you don't need the retaining screw. Just get a drill, and I'm telling you what, you buy a DeWalt or Milwaukee or any kind of drill bit. This screw's metal is so pathetically weak. You will drill through this screw so fast, you will see the shreds of metal just flying out of there like crazy. You can literally do this and drill all the way through to where there's a big hole on the other side. You can see daylight going through it. You can get this all done in about 7 minutes. Just drill the crap out of it and get rid of everything. Just wiggle the drill around. You can use the sides of the bit. Just get it all out of there. And then remember, when you get it off of there, get the caliper assembly off of there, everything's gone. Pound the rotor from the back as you rotate it. And then do that about 2 or 3 times, and then start to hit it really hard. And that rotor, and you might also want to, I did this, go ahead and hold a can of PB Blaster in and around the areas where the lug studs come out. Spray it in there real good. Let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes and let that PB get up into that hole and get rid of loosen up any corrosion that might be in there, just to make it a little bit easier to get off. You have a great day. Thanks for watching.